right, everybody, get ready, because today we're diving headfirst into a topic that's more than just a buzzword.
Yeah, it's not just some trendy jargon.
We're talking about a real game changer, the circular economy.
That's right, and we've got our hands on, well, think of it as the ultimate playbook.
Fresh off the presses, too.
October 2024.
This is cutting-edge stuff. And it's not some pie-in-the-sky theory either. This is practical advice, a roadmap from some of the biggest names in Brazilian industry.
CNI, Furjan, FUSP, they're all back in this. You know it's got to be important.
Seriously, these are heavy hitters. They don't mess around. And what's really cool is that they don't just talk about the what, they actually break down the how businesses can actually make this whole circular economy thing a reality.
And here's a little secret. It's not just good for the planet.
Oh, so we're not just talking about saving the whales here.
It's good business.
All right, now you've got my attention. I'm all about good business. But seriously, explain that a little bit more.
Well, think about the old way of doing things. Take, make, dispose. It's like trying to run a race with a backpack full of rocks.
Okay, I get it. Inefficient, holding you back, definitely not aerodynamic.
Exactly. This guide is saying that the circular economy, it's not just about being eco-friendly, it's about being resilient, about outsmarting the competition.
So less hugging trees, more like outmaneuvering the competition? Is that what I'm hearing?
You got it.
Okay, I like the sound of that. But how does that actually work? What's the competitive edge we're talking about?
Just imagine for a second, the world's gone haywire, supply chains are shot, resources are scarce, prices are through the roof. Now picture a company running on this circular model. They've figured out how to eliminate waste. Their products are built to last, and when they do reach the end of their life, boom, they're reborn, repurposed. Resources aren't disappearing, they're continuously flowing in loops.
So they're not just weathering the storm, they're prepared for it.
Exactly, they're not even sweating it.
Okay, I see the appeal here. But let's be real, at the end of the day, businesses want to see that bottom line. Where's the profit in all of this sustainability?
Let's put it this way. Consumers are getting smarter. They're more aware than ever. They want products that are sustainable, and they're willing to pay for them.
Oh yeah, voting with their wallets.
Exactly. And on top of that, governments are cracking down. Regulations are getting tougher on waste and emissions. Going circular means companies aren't just meeting these new standards, they're blowing past them.
It's like future-proofing your business model.
That's a good way to put it. That kind of forward thinking, it builds trust, it strengthens your brand, and it makes you the obvious choice for consumers.
So you've got happy customers, happy stakeholders, and a happy planet.
It's a win-win-win.
It's starting to feel less like an option and more like, well, this is just the way things have to be done from now on. But let's be practical. How does this guide recommend that businesses actually implement these circular strategies?
Yeah, because all this sounds amazing in theory, but where do you even begin? Well, the guide lays it all out in a clear step-by-step process. And the first step, it might feel a little introspective, but it's crucial.
Right.
Assessment.
Okay, so before you even start thinking about overhauling your entire business model, you got to take a good hard look in the mirror.
That's right.
But what exactly are we assessing here?
It's all about getting a clear understanding of your current state of circularity.
So like a circularity checkup?
Yeah, you could call it that.
Okay, I like.
What's already working in your favor? Where are the areas where you could, let's say, step up your game a bit?
Identify those little pockets of waste, those processes that are stuck in the dark ages.
Exactly. Out with the old, in with the new, and once you've got a handle on where you stand,
Once you've got that clear picture.
you move on to the next phase, defining your circular vision.
Okay, so if the assessment is about taking stock of where you are now, this is where you set your sights on the horizon.
Precisely.
What's the ultimate goal?
This is where you ask those big, ambitious questions. What would success look like for us in this circular economy? What are we truly passionate about changing? And what's actually achievable given our resources, our industry?
Right, because a fashion brand's vision of circularity is going to look different from, say, a tech company's vision.
Exactly. It's about playing to your strengths.
Right.
Aligning your circular goals with your core values as a business with your overall mission.
It's got to be authentic.
Absolutely. And this is where the guide gets really practical, because it's not enough to just have some vague aspirations. They push for specific, measurable targets.
Because what gets measured gets managed, right?
You know the saying. And that brings us to the next critical phase, developing the action plan.
All right, so we've done the soul searching. We've envisioned our ideal circular future.
Right.
Time to roll up our sleeves and figure out the nitty-gritty, the how-to.
Precisely. This is where the rubber meets the road. Let's say your big vision is to become completely carbon neutral by 2035.
Ambitious. I like it.
What concrete steps are you going to take to get there? Are you going to invest in renewable energy sources, optimize your logistics, transportation, maybe redesign your products for maximum energy efficiency?
It's like breaking down a marathon into manageable miles.
That's a great analogy.
You don't just show up on race day and hope for the best, right? You've got to map out your route, think about your pacing, maybe even listen to some motivational podcasts along the way.
I love it. And just like training for a marathon, implementing the circular economy, it's a journey, not a sprint.
Of a long game.
Exactly. This guide emphasizes that it's an ongoing process of learning, adapting, and refining your approach as you go.
So no resting on your laurels after you've put out a few recycling bins.
Absolutely not.
This is about continuous improvement. But how do you actually know if what you're doing is working? What needs to be adjusted? That's where the data comes in, right? You got to measure it if you want to manage it, especially something as big as this whole circular economy shift.
You hit the nail on the head. This guide really drives home the importance of measurement. It's like, you're trying to navigate through a jungle. You need a compass, you need a map. Otherwise, you're just going to get lost.
Absolutely. But measuring something as complex and multifaceted as circularity, that can't be easy. I mean, where do you even start?
Well, it's definitely more involved than just, sticking a thermometer in it and see if it's hot or cold. The guide breaks down this measurement process into several key stages. And the first one might surprise you. Setting boundaries.
Boundaries, like don't even talk to me about my circularity until I've had my coffee.
Well, not exactly. It's more about defining what it is you're actually trying to measure. Are we talking about a specific product, like say, you've designed this amazing reusable water bottle? Or are we looking at a whole process within your company, like your entire supply chain? Or maybe you're going really big picture and you're trying to measure your company's entire environmental impact.
So you need to know what you're aiming for before you even start measuring. Makes sense. But once you've got those boundaries, what's next?
Data. This is where you roll up your sleeves and figure out what specific metrics, what indicators are going to tell you if you're actually making progress on your circular journey.
So like what? What kind of things are we actually measuring here?
Well, think about it. How much of your product is actually made from recycled materials? How long does that product last before it needs to be replaced? How much water or energy are you able to capture and reuse in your operations? Those are the kind of numbers that tell a story.
Okay, data is great, but numbers by themselves don't mean much. You have to actually interpret them, right?
Exactly. Data without analysis is like a book without a story. You got to dig into those numbers and figure out what they're telling you. Are you on track to reach those big circularity goals you set? What's working well that you can maybe do more of? And more importantly, where are the gaps? Where do you need to improve?
Right, you find those weak points, you optimize. So you've measured your circularity, you've crunched the numbers, you've got a plan for improvement. What's next?
Shout it from the rooftops. Well, maybe not literally, but the guide is very clear about this. You've got to communicate your findings, be transparent with your stakeholders, investors, customers, even your own employees. They all want to know.
Especially those eco-conscious consumers we were talking about before. They're looking for companies that are walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Exactly. Being open about your circular journey builds trust and shows that you're serious about making a positive impact.
And in today's world, that kind of authenticity, that's gold.
Couldn't agree more. Now, to make this all a little more concrete, let's look at a few real-world examples from the guide. After all, it's one thing to talk about circularity in the abstract, but seeing it in action, that's when it really clicks.
All right, hit me with your best shot.
Okay, picture this. A car manufacturer. Not exactly known for being the greenest industry out there. But imagine if they started taking back old car parts, refurbishing them, and using them to build new cars.
Talk about giving those parts a second life. That's got to be good for the environment, good for their bottom line too. Less waste, less need for raw materials.
Yeah, exactly. And they could even pass those savings on to the consumer, making those more sustainable vehicles even more appealing. Everyone wins.
All right, I'm liking this. What else you got?
Let's switch gears completely. Let's talk about chemicals. Imagine a chemical company that instead of just selling their products outright, they start leasing them to other businesses.
Leasing chemicals, that's a new one.
It's a brilliant circular strategy. Think about it. The chemical company, they retain ownership of their product, they take it back after it's been used, they can either process it for reuse or extract valuable resources from it. They've turned a linear process into a closed loop.
Wow. Okay, we've gone from car parts to chemicals. I'm starting to realize that circularity, it's not one size fits all, it's more of a flexible framework that any business can adapt and apply in creative ways.
Exactly. And we've been focusing on businesses, and don't get me wrong, this guide is a treasure trove of information for them. But ultimately, the success of the circular economy, it hinges on all of us. As consumers, we have a huge role to play.
We can all do our part.
Absolutely. Every time we choose to repair something instead of throwing it away, every time we buy a refurbished product instead of automatically going for brand new, we're casting a vote for a more circular future.
It's about shifting our mindset from that old take, make, dispose to a more sustainable reduce, reuse, rethink.
Yes. And imagine the impact if millions of people made those small changes.
It all adds up. Well, that about wraps up our deep dive into the circular economy. We've covered a lot of ground, from the why it's important to the how-to, but if there's one key takeaway I hope you walk away with today, it's this. The future is circular, and we all have a part to play in making it happen.